Yeah.
We're live on our channel.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Kingdom of Honor. I'm your host, Dan Shane Sabuni. Welcome to everybody, the Honorable Jeff. And Jeff, I don't know if you saw this, but I really liked and I'm sure you saw the match. I mean, I really liked the uh, parking lot fight between Best Friends and Santana and Ortiz last week with the cameo by both uh, or Juice and by
You can't call him Juice.
I'm trying to think. It just totally slipped his name totally slipped my mind now. But
Oh.
and then also Trans Mom, of course. But I thought it was a little ridiculous that it was the first 5-star match that Dave Meltzer had given since the tag match from Revolution. I just don't see it as a 5-star classic.
Haven't we already discussed that Dave Meltzer is nuts, first of all? And secondly, how you doing? It's been 2 weeks. Not
Eh,
gonna lie, kind of missed talking to you last week.
I'm doing okay. A lot of stuff going on with my house, as you know. A lot of stuff going on with the training stuff. New boss, new way of doing things. Trying to figure out how to train in a virtual world is not fun. Um, but I'm really enjoying having a Switch. I bought a Switch a few weeks ago, so I'm really enjoying having a Switch and playing some Mario for the first time in a dozen years or so. So
I
that's
have
that's
uh, I have the old or those remastered NES and NES, Super NES. So whenever I want to get my Mario fix, I just run those. But regardless, planning on doing a show last week. Didn't really have anything to talk about. There was nothing going on, so we figured, hey, you know what? Let's do an AEW live broadcast. And then, typical in my world, all hell broke loose, so that wasn't a
hmm
possibility. But we're back this week, and since we have not talked about AEW in forever, we're going to talk about AEW. Wait, no, last show we talked about AEW, but that's not what I mean. You know what I mean?
Well, last show we talked about Dynamite. Tonight we're going to talk about. I'm sorry. Last show we talked about
All out.
All Out. Today we're going to talk about Dynamite for the first time in forever. So you were close.
But you're right. As far as a 5-star match goes, I didn't think that was a 5-star match, but I never think street fights and, I mean, street fights are so cookie cutter. I hate to say that. I mean, I guess is that the best thing to say? But when you're watching a street fight, typically it's the same thing over and over and over again. No matter what street fight you watch, you basically see the same spots. Um, there's been a few exceptions over the years. I mean, we saw the what was it, Jimmy Havoc, Sammy Callahan street fight from MLW, which was outstanding. We saw the I guess hair versus mask that ended up into a street fight or whatever the hell it was, Sammy Callahan and Pentagon. We had the Moxley versus uh, uh, help me with his name, the Joey Janela street fight that was pretty good. As far as street fight goes, 5-star. I don't even think it was the best. I don't even think it was the best AEW street fight we've seen, was it?
No, it was at least the third best because you mentioned Moxley against Janela, but you forgot about Moxley versus Kenny Omega.
Yeah, and that one was amazing too. I mean, I cannot honestly say, and I mean, we've talked about Meltzer before about how we think he is insane. And I think a lot of the times when Meltzer gives a rating at this point, and maybe it's been throughout his career, but we don't necessarily see the same thing he does, and that's not wrong. Everybody's got their own way of looking at things. We've discussed that many times. I just don't think that you and I are on the same wavelength as Dave Meltzer, and what he sees is completely different than what we see.
Agreed. And I looked at that and I went. When I saw that he had been his first um, 5-star rating in so many months, I wanted to look at the list and see what he had rated last. And he did have that tag match from Revolution in there, which which you liked a lot, and I personally am of the opinion, as along with a lot of other people, that it's the greatest tag match of all time.
Right.
Um, you know the I don't think you're quite there, but you thought it was great also. So
I
I
mean,
don't think you had a problem with it being called a 5-star match.
no, and the two
Um,
Golden Lover matches to me in NJPW in 2019 were still better.
sure, and that's fair. I mean, they're up there with me as well. And of course there was that great tag match that we saw last year as well between the 2018 you're talking about 20 not 2019, but
Yeah, yeah.
anyway, but 2019 we saw that great Birds of Prey match against Ishimori and El Phantasmo too.
Which
You
was
know,
amazing.
yeah, both of them were actually both their matches were amazing. But I looked at the other matches he had on his 5-star list, and the other matches he had on there were from Wrestle Kingdom, Ibushi versus Okada; from Wrestle Kingdom, Hiromu Takahashi versus Will Ospreay; from Wrestle Kingdom Night 2, um, Naito versus Okada; from and then from February 14th from the Valentine's Day show, Zack Sabre Jr. versus Will Ospreay. So really, I mean, it's rare companies got these matches in. I just thought it was really weird that was and if he had not had the tag match in there, um, because he's only got two matches from the United States in there, right? In his 5-star matches from 2020. They're both in AEW. I'm shocked. I'm absolutely shocked he doesn't have that tag match between Mustache Mountain and DIY in there.
Yeah, that was by far my favorite. I mean, outside of the Bucks versus Omega and Page, that was easily my second favorite tag match of the year.
Right.
Easily. My biggest problem with his rating that as a 5-star match is that wasn't even the best match on the night. Page versus Kaz. Come on. That was outstanding to watch.
Which match?
Uh, Adam
Oh,
Page
Page versus Kaz.
versus
Yeah. Oh, and
Frankie.
Dynamite. You're talking about. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
No, it was.
I mean, to me, that was the best match of the night. So for him to put that street fight over it just really makes me question Dave Meltzer and his whatever his rating systems are, whatever he thinks. I guess at this point, I don't even know.
Yeah, and I thought it was really weird that Jim Ross said it was this one of the best street fight he can remember calling. It's like
Dude, you called two better in the same company.
right. And how many Mick Foley matches have you called? I mean, come on.
Exactly. In the same company you called two better. Yeah, it was nuts. I mean, it was nice seeing but it ultimately came down to the same cookie cutter spots. You had the only thing that was out of the ordinary, out of any other street fight I've ever seen. And this is even a stretch because you've seen it done the same way, but the fact that it was Trent's mom and not a stablemate or another wrestler made it different. Otherwise, there was nothing about this match that I didn't think was cookie cutter.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I guess um with Cassidy coming out and out of that trunk and hitting the Superman punch or the orange punch. I did that with the chain. That was really cool. That was something
It was a
I
cool
wasn't
spot,
expecting to
yeah.
come.
It was a
That's
cool
something I
spot and we didn't expect it, but we've seen similar things. We've seen teammates come out of nowhere and deliver a knockout blow before. It's not like it was something that kind of wasn't expected. It was the timing of it that wasn't expected. Like, we expected at some point stablemates were going to get involved.
yeah. And even at that point, I was sat there thinking you were sitting in the trunk the entire time.
Right. I mean, it was a really cool spot. It was a perfect Orange Cassidy spot. It fit his old sloth style persona and his new, more aggressive versus Chris Jericho persona that he's been having. But ultimately, it was a spot that I was expecting and waiting to see happen. The entire match, I was waiting for interference from stablemates because that has become a staple of street fights. I mean, Jesus Christ, we had the street fight with Hardy and Omega versus Jericho and Guevara that I felt was better than this.
Yeah, and the other match that I'm sure and I know there's a couple matches on there with Darby Allin that you're that I know that you would throw in there too, like Darby Allin versus John Moxley and Darby Allin versus Cody from the very first Dynamite of the year. Are two
Right.
matches that could be up there for 5-star matches. There's also that great Iron Man match between Page and Pac that could
Right.
be in there.
Well,
Um,
Omega and Pac.
yeah, Omega and Pac. Sorry.
But the
But
fact
but
that
but but when I looked at but when I watched Double or Nothing and saw that incredible match, that Stadium Stampede, and I look at his list, they don't have that. He doesn't have that on there. I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you doing?
that was innovative, that it got a little too much at some points, but when was the last time you ever saw a guy do 100 yards of sunset flips? Yeah, the comedy aspect with the excessive celebration and the challenge flag spots and the whole page just kind of wandering off to the but there was some parts of that that were a little slow a little bit, but the innovation and the fact that they pulled in so many things you've never seen, like 100 yards of um,
Northern Light
suplexes
suplexes.
and Northern Light suplexes, and Sammy going through that, and the Matt Hardy spot where he was switching personas every time he got dunked. I mean,
Yeah, I was gonna say the Matt Hardy. To me, the Matt Hardy spot that is was better just in itself than this entire match was.
yeah, I mean, it was that match, and then when you look at, if you want to look at like a street fight tag match, yeah, Hagar got involved, yeah, blah blah, cookie cutter, blah, but there were so many innovative things in that match. The whole golf cart part of that match was more innovative than anything we saw in this street fight.
Yeah, completely agreed. You mentioned Chris Jericho in passing, and I just wanted to say that I don't think it can be argued that Chris Jericho's been the best heel in the business the entire year. Um, I mean, Evil would give him a run for his money probably for the few months in New Japan. Kenta you could say the same thing, but from year
But
start
we
to year
didn't have,
end,
yeah, we lost a good 3.5 to 4 months of those guys.
yeah, right.
So
It's been Chris Jericho, right?
yeah, because when
And
Jericho,
still,
even when Jericho's not in the ring, Jericho was being an outstanding heel on the mic.
yeah, and yet still, I just watched right before we started the show. I watched the first night of the
Please don't tell
G1
me.
Climax,
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
and and Jay White in one moment made me go, God damn, I missed this guy as a heel. Um, After the match is over, the young lion is there holding the ice pack to the neck of Shingo Takagi, and Jay scoots over, takes the ice pack. It's just so fucking cool.
Wait, is Jay back in Japan?
He was in the G1. He's in the G1.
Nice. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm glad because I think as good as I thought he would have been in the strong style stuff, or in the NJPW strong episodes, I miss him mixing it up with the big guys in Japan. So I'm glad he's back. Was anybody else back there?
Kenta's back. Um, Jeff Cobb's back, and Juice is back. All four of those guys are
Okay.
in the G1.
Okay, so basically everybody except God is back in Japan.
Yes.
Okay, good, good.
God
Well,
and
Osprey
Fale.
and Osprey
And
and
no, I'm sorry. I should say Osprey's in the G1 as well.
oh, is he? Okay. So it,
Osprey actually had a match on the same night against Yujiro Takahashi.
and see, I haven't seen any of it because when did the English commentary come up today?
It isn't yet. I just decided,
Okay.
you know what? It's the G1, and if it's only going to be Kevin Kelly commenting anyway, I may just like the Japanese commentary better. So I
Yeah,
just decided to go and watch it.
I still like the American commentary, even if it is just Kevin Kelly. I used to.
I think he's really good, but I think he gets a little bit dry when it's just him. So I thought, do I really want to wait just to have Kevin as the only commentator? And I was like, no, I want to watch these matches.
And see,
So
for me, I'll let it wait. I'll let it wait just because um, I get distracted a lot of times with the Japanese broadcast just because I haven't seen it for so long that it takes me out. And I found myself the last time we watched, I can't remember which one it was, but it was New Japan Cup where I told you that I had to see what happened with Evil and Okada. I had to see it. And I got so distracted by the Japanese commentary that I found myself rewinding a lot to catch up what was going on in the ring. And it wasn't until I listened to it again with the English commentary that I really got into the match.
well, night one. the three matches I really got into were, of course, Ishii versus Minoru Suzuki.
Of course.
Um, of course, Jay White against Shingo Takagi. But then the main event was a rematch of the finals from last year's G1, which was Kazuchika Okada versus Kota Ibushi.
Interesting.
So rematch not only of last year's G1 finals, but also this year's night one of Wrestle Kingdom main event.
That was an interesting choice.
Yeah, yeah. So
But
and some
Coda,
really good stuff.
I mean, I've been saying it all year. Coda has really fallen. Last year, he was the golden child. He was the guy handpicked to be the next champion. Everything about him was going the right way. And after Wrestle Kingdom, when he lost both matches, he's really kind of fallen from grace. He doesn't seem to have that same aura that he had last year. So it makes sense that he would be in an opening match against Okada as opposed to a finals match.
I'm biting my tongue right now.
I
Um,
just really hope that it's not Okada winning another or being in the finals again. I'm so sick and tired of Okada. I get it. He's the best wrestler in Japan. He's probably the best wrestler on the planet. He needs to at some point take a step back and not always be in the finals of everything. Let some other people shine.
he is, yeah, and that's
Okay,
I
go ahead.
really hate that I started to feel this way about Okada, but I'm starting to feel the same way about Okada that I felt about John Cena for so many years.
It's just too much. It's all the time. It's every time. It's even his no, Ben, leave that. Lego, stay out here. No, Lego, stay out here. Ben, seriously. Oh, children.
Are
Anyway,
you babysitting tonight?
no, well, Arlo's 5 now, so it's
Right.
not as cool. He gets his time with his mom, and it used to be he was so worn out spending time with other kids that he'd come here, he'd chill, we'd watch movies, we'd play Legos. It would just be me and him time. Well, last time he was here, now that he's 5, it's all about playing with other kids.
Gotcha.
So I told my ex that I'd take her roommate's kid along with him. Um, yeah, remind me never do that again. But hey,
For the for
it's
the whole time or just for tonight?
just for tonight, just for tonight.
Okay.
In
All
fact,
right.
I flat out said that if he's not gone tomorrow, I'm bringing him home. Because the last time I did something like this, the kid ended up staying with me for 4 days, and that ain't happening. Nope, nope, nope. But I mean, my kid's at that point where he's a toddler. And he's not a toddler anymore. He's at that upper edge of being a toddler when they start to develop that, hey, I'm no longer a toddler, I'm a 5-year-old, so I'm a big boy attitude. So yeah, he's got that now. So I'm already having issues with that. And I just was like, okay, you know what? Let his friend come for a day. We'll see what happens. Not gonna happen all week.
Gotcha. Yeah, I largely feel the same way you do about G1 or about NGPW in general, that I can get taken out of the matches really easily with the Japanese commentary. However, we're talking about the G1 climax, and we're talking about the fact that I've got the next 3 days off of work, so I can just kind of kick back and get
What?
caught up. Um,
You know what? So if you're not caught up on DC Universe in the next 3 days, I'm gonna disown you as a friend.
well, go and disown me then, because I'll be caught. Get you can. I'll be catching. I'll be finishing up season 5, season 4 of Flash, and season 3 of Supergirl, but I won't be all the way caught up for sure.
So you're a
Uh,
season behind then. You're
uh 2 seasons behind, right?
is that are they on season 6 of Flash? No,
They're
because you've got Ralph Dibny. And Ralph came about in season 5, I thought.
season 4. Um,
Oh, against DeVoe. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
you're right. You're right. You're right.
So, yeah, and actually, I don't know if you saw the news, but today they announced that this coming up season of Supergirl is going to be the final one.
Yep, I
So,
saw that. And
um,
I,
but just to finish my point about G1 before we move on to Supergirl is by the time that it rolls around to the I really hope that by the time it rolls around to the night night A finals, the night B finals, and then the block and then the total finals, that we're looking at English commentary being live on the broadcast. But until then, I think we're going to be playing catch up the entire time, and so it just makes sense to me to watch it in Japanese commentary.
I have a feeling that that's gonna what's gonna happen because it seemed to me like when they did the last big show that they're only going to do the big shows. And
Yeah,
these are kind of the road to shows for the most part.
right, right.
So it makes sense to me that they're not doing it, but I get it.
Yeah,
I
I mean, and they're going to add English commentary at some point. I just think we're always going to be playing catch up until then, and so it's just to me, I'm just going to go ahead and watch these matches, especially since they're not doing those 8-man tags this year. They're just going to do the 4 or 5 matches for that block on that night, which makes sense given the COVID stuff going on.
Oh, really? So we're only getting hour and a half long shows as opposed to 3,
It was 2 hours and 22 minutes.
which isn't bad.
No,
I mean, that's not bad at all. That's not bad at all. I can figure out how to run that.
I do think it's weird that Supergirl's ending after season 6, though. But
I do and I don't. It to me, um, and as you know, and we've said it on the show, and you personally know, I started watching the DC Universe in order. Starting with Arrow season 1, episode 1, running through every episode, every season, everything. And um, you know, I I finally have now finished off Arrow. Like I'm done with Arrow. There is no more. Finally watched the last episode of that, so I'm completely done with Arrow. And I said this to you last week. I wish that we had been able to do the Infinite Earths, Crisis on Infinite Earths series as a YouTube show because I think every episode we could have talked for 45 minutes to an hour on. Every single one. There was so much that happened, and there were so many worries coming out of it because I, as you come out of every episode or every as we came out of this crisis, I was really curious how they were going to do this whole all one world thing, moving Netherland or Freeland and Metropolis and National City all to Earth Prime and having all these. I think they've pulled it off exceptionally well. Exceptionally well. I think the addition of each new meta that's come in, the addition of the storylines and the crossovers and just everything has been phenomenal from what I've watched. And I'm about 2 to 3 episodes each past the crisis, and it just seems to get better every time. And
cool.
I don't know if
Yeah,
you know,
I haven't gotten to there yet, obviously, but I really did enjoy what Batwoman did with that happening.
yeah, and the fact that her sister, the whole thing with her sister and the multiple and just everything that she's done has been outstanding. Not just her, but even with the way that they've incorporated Freeland and kind of done one of the things I love the most about Flash and Arrow, because those were the two shows that did it the most. And a little bit with Legends once that kind of came into existence too, but mainly Flash and Arrow, is they kept the universe together. There were so many little details of each show that if you paid attention, you watched it and you're like, oh, yeah, okay, I remember that on Flash, or I remember that on Arrow. Now they're doing that with every series, every show. There was something on Black Lightning that I just saw. This was three episodes later. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's kind of a callback to the Flash. And not just mentioning them by name or mentioning them as I know these people. It was just these little tiny things that they've done that has been such great callbacks to every other show. And it's actually made it to where I feel like the DCU on TV is better than anything I saw on the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Wow, that's high praise right there.
It's been phenomenal, and I'm so happy I've been able to watch it in order. I am a little bit disappointed with how cartoony Legends of Tomorrow has gotten after the crisis, but I guess that show was always a little bit comedic more than it should have been.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a bit of there's it's a bit of cheesiness, it's about a bit of comic relief there. Speaking of Legends though, I actually the episode of Flash, well, one of the 3 or 4 episodes of Flash I watched today, got to see Leo return right before his wedding, which was really awesome.
anytime
I
Leonard
love
Snart is
Snarts. I love any version of Snart.
my favorite version though was the Earth X version. Him as a gay guy was one of the greatest things. When he joined Legends for those few episodes, him and the puppet, some of the greatest stuff I've ever seen. But Snart as a character from day one has always been one of my favorites. Um, it sounds like, and like I said, I'm only a couple episodes in, but it sounds like with the whole reboot that Oliver did, that Snart might end up coming back into Flash, and then of course eventually into DC or Legends Tomorrow and so on.
I'd be okay with that. Yeah, but and this was the gay version I'm talking about. You know, Leo, right before he's about to get married to Ray, and he has that great line where he's like, where he looks at Flash and or he looks at Barry and Cisco, and he's like, you know, with you two being able to make it work,
Right.
and, and then he was like, I'm teasing, I tease.
And the whole crisis thing, excuse me, the whole crisis thing, I mean, there were so many parts that were really heartbreaking, and I felt like they didn't touch on enough. And you haven't gotten this far yet, but there's some scenes in Flash with Cisco where he kind of brings everything I was feeling into where it should be. Like the whole Harry, I mean, you saw a crisis, so you know what I'm talking about. Earth 2 got eaten out by the antimatter wave, and all the other Earths got eaten up. And Cisco, and, so of course I'm thinking, what about Jay from Earth 3, the Flash from Earth 3? What about Ray from Earth X? What about Harry and Jesse from Earth 2? And Cisco kind of brought that all together in one of the later episodes that you're going to see. And I don't want to get too much into it because I don't want to ruin it for you. But it was one of those things where, as I'm watching this, because I've been watching it in order, I'm sitting there going, Jesus Christ, I grew to love these characters, and now they're gone, and there's no explanation for it. So it was nice to see that Flash and Cisco especially kept it kind of real and kind of made it so that we understood the whole scope of everything.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. Anyway, we
And
probably should get back to wrestling, I suppose.
yeah, why not? It is a wrestling show. Now, I mean, we haven't gotten to do our Monday night shows for a while, and haven't gotten to do our pop culture, so we got to get it out at some point.
Very true. Just hopefully some of the people that are listening to our wrestling show care about that stuff. If they don't, sorry guys, but you know we'll go back to wrestling in just a moment here. So
Just a moment. You mean like right now?
like right now, yeah. Interesting stuff going on. I think with Thunder Rosa and Sheeta.
Yeah, and another interesting thing come out of that too. Remember Serena Deeb?
Yes.
She was Serena from CM Punk's cult of, what was it? What was his stable back in the day? It was
Oh,
him, Gallows, and Serena.
that's her.
Yeah. Do you realize that she's only 34 years old?
I had no idea.
I mean, I remember seeing her, was it 2003, 2004, thinking, and then she just disappeared. And like, we never really got to see how great she was. But I guess she's been a producer and a backstage, helping talent, a trainer, and all that in the WWE the last few years, and got released in that big cutoff in April. Now she is fully signed to AEW because of her match with Thunder Rosa. And I couldn't be happier. That match she had was outstanding. I'm truly starting to believe, like I know their tag division puts on great matches. I know they've got some great single star, but I am more every single week impressed with the women, and not just the upper echelon like Sheeta, Thunder Rosa, and so on, but everybody all the way through, even to the jobbers, put on amazing stories, amazing matches every single week. The women are probably the highlight. I mean, granted, you had the one-off with Paige and Kaz, and you've always got a male match that's up there too. But it seems to me like every single week when I watch AEW, the women are one of the top one or two matches on the night.
Yeah, not only one or two matches of the night, but also like one of the top couple of segments of the night, which I think is why it struck me so much on when I watched this most recent Dynamite the last couple of days is where the hell has Britt Baker been?
Who
I
was
know
the
she
highlight for the whole quarantine?
right. I know that she got knocked out and beaten up by your girl.
Ugh,
What the hell? I can't think of her name right now, but my memory just goes bad sometimes.
Swole.
Yeah, Big Swole. Yeah, that's
No,
it.
what was the chick from Bianca Swole?
Yeah. So, but still, I mean, she hasn't been on the last two Dynamites since then. It's kind of weird.
Well, technically, the last two Dynamites were back-to-back nights, and she did just
They
come
were.
off a. Well, yeah, there it was Wednesday and Thursday last week, dude.
Wait, there was a Dynamite last Thursday too?
Yeah, they had a back-to-back night show.
No.
That's what I heard. I didn't watch Thursday, so I don't
No, they
know.
no they had they were going to do either if the playoffs were going to would have gone um there's something going on with the NBA. Like if one of the series had gone an extra game, then they would have gone on Thursday instead of on
Oh,
Wednesday.
oh, okay, okay, okay. For some reason maybe I misunderstood that, and it's been pissing me off because I didn't see it on my TV, and so I couldn't record it, and then I haven't seen any results. But it sounded like they were doing back-to-back Wednesday and Thursday last week.
No, they didn't.
Okay, good. So I didn't miss anything. Okay. Now I feel like less of an idiot, but more of an idiot for even bringing that up.
They are doing that weird Dynamite tonight though.
Yeah, but that's because the playoffs are tomorrow night, or are they tonight?
I don't know.
I, eh, there's so much craziness going. Oh, and speaking of which, the Monday Night Wars are done, dead, over.
Wednesday night, you mean?
Wednesday Night Wars, yeah.
The Monday Night Wars have been dead for years, Jeff.
Well, the Wednesday night,
I'm glad you finally got word of that 22 years later,
well, to be honest, I have been kind of, um,
19 years later, I guess it
you know,
is.
I until this last week, when I'm so close to having to being done with DCU that I've really been concentrated on that. But I've been going back and revisiting my Monday Night Wars just to kind of watch them again. So I've kind of got that on the brain. But the Wednesday Night Wars, from what I understand, are dead because NXT is moving permanently to Tuesday nights.
That a real thing now?
Yeah,
Because I thought you brought that up a couple of weeks ago, and then the next night
they were back
they
on
were
Wednesday.
they were
Yeah.
on Wednesday again. So
No, from the sounds of it, that's a permanent thing. That's a USA thing. USA didn't see the ratings draw that Vince had promised them, so they opened up Tuesday nights and they were moving them to Tuesday. So supposedly NXT is going to be on Tuesday, but after this whole retribution and now one of the best wrestlers in NXT is now a joke on the main roster, shocking, shocking, like we've seen this before. But Dominic Dijakovic, it being announced as part of Retribution and his whole new name and face mask that looks like he's from Mad Max. It's just, oh,
yeah, I saw the face mask. I don't necessarily have a problem with that, but I do think it's weird that they give him a new name too. It was a weird name too, right? They
like
did that with a couple of
T-Bar
people,
or
didn't they?
something. It was like T-Bar or something like that.
Well, as you know, I thought Dijakovic was a mouthful to say anyway, so I'm really not that upset about that.
But
But calling him T-Bar is weird.
his character got over so well. His matches with Keith Lee in NXT were the highlight of the summer. I mean, you say what you want about Gargano, or I'm sorry, about Cole and Gargano's heel turn, which by the way, we talked about that the last time. It's not working. As much as I wanted Gargano to turn heel, I just don't think that he's cut out for it. But regardless, anyway, Dijakovic was one of the best parts of NXT, along with Mia Yim. And then also, the Mia Lim Keith Lee or Mia Yim Keith Lee relationship was playing out. And so now you've got Mia Yim attacking Keith Lee on Raw, like we're all supposed to forget that NXT even happens. That's been one of the biggest complaints I've had about the WWE for the last 4, 5, 10 years is they expect us to have such a short-term memory and they act like we don't watch any other wrestling ever, anywhere. Period.
So what are you trying to say?
I hate it. I mean, even look, even AEW. AEW has not shied away from the whole Joey Janela Penelope Ford thing. Penelope's moved on. She's now legitimately in real life engaged to Kip Sabian, no longer dating Joey Janela. But they didn't shy away from that, and that happened on the Indies. The Penelope Ford Joey Janela thing was an Indies thing, and they bring it up because they know that wrestling fans are wrestling fans. Where WWE thinks, oh, you're a Raw fan, so you're only a Raw fan. You don't know anything that's happened anywhere else, including our other programs.
Well, I mean, yeah, they do think about things that way. But if you look at the numbers, there probably are a lot more people that watch Raw than watch NXT,
No,
or
and
at least and while it was still on the network.
right.
And that definitely could have changed since it's moved to USA. I have no idea what the ratings look like between
I
those
don't
two
I
now.
don't either, but regardless, I mean, it's the wrestling fans to bring in a to change up things that the hardcore fans, who are the ones who are watching every show, who are the ones that are in every single, watching SmackDown, watching Raw, watching NXT, watching all the Sunday night specials on the network, watching, buying the merchandise. The hardcore fans at some point need to be the ones that are placated to, not the casual fan. And as much as I think AEW has gotten more into the American version of WWE style of wrestling than I'd hoped they would, they at least are still true to the hardcore fans. They don't act like Eddie Kingston's an idiot that's just fresh off the planet. He came in with a name.
Did you know he never got eliminated from the Royal Rumble? Look up
Oh
the
yeah.
rules, or for the Battle Royal, look up the rules.
Yep. Oh yeah. 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 I saw it.
Okay.
But they when he came in with a name. If he had come into WWE, he would have probably come in as Aldo Montoya and been a jobber for the first 6 months until they built him up into their version. That's been my biggest problem with WWE, and I get it. They've got the best wrestlers on the planet because they were the only people on the planet for a while. But ultimately, they are not geared towards the hardcore fan. They're geared towards the casual fan that's just like, oh, hey, I like wrestling.
Right.
That guy's kind of cute. I'm going to watch this.
This guy's kind of cute.
Well, I mean, let's face it. That's the way they've done it, and they've proven that time and time again. The whole wrestling, hardcore wrestling fans were chanting for Roman Reigns to turn heel for the last 6 years. Finally, he does it. It's like they don't care about the hardcore fans as much as other promotions do. That's all I was saying. Sorry.
No, and really, it doesn't make any sense that they don't because all the other people that they, supposedly turned into stars over the last several years have been guys that were popular in the indies before they ever made it to WWE.
The last two people that were homegrown WWE talents that became stars were Cena and Orton. Oh,
Right.
and Edge. I guess Edge was in that, and Batista. But the I mean, Batista and Edge were gone years and years ago. So when you look at the modern roster over the last 4 years, the last two homegrown superstars were Cena and Orton. Everyone else came from somewhere else.
Yep. And I mean, and really, that's the way wrestling, always was before. Anyway, is you would work in a territory, you'd get popular in a territory, you'd move on to another territory, and then you'd come back around. You know.
Hogan was a big name in AWA before he came to WWF.
Right.
Piper in Nashville, Savage in Nashville, Jake Roberts in Nashville, Ted DiBiase in Nashville. You had Flair from WCW. You had everybody came from somewhere. There was very little. I mean, they had their homegrown sprinkled in there here and there, but ultimately everybody got their names somewhere else and then brought it to the WWE. And for some reason, when they were the only dog on the planet after 2001, yeah, TNA was something special for a while. Christian Cage went there and came back, but outside of that, was there anybody that came from the original TNA that became anything in WWE outside of AJ Styles?
I was about to say AJ Styles. Um,
I mean, Christian was really one of the first, but he was an original WWE guy. And then he went to TNA, made a bigger name for himself, and then came back and became a name. But
well, I mean, I guess it depends on how big you're looking because I mean, because definitely Brian Kendrick and Paul London, were came over and they were a hot tag team. They held the titles for over a year.
yeah,
So I
but
mean,
Kendrick
so I mean,
was
but
with
that's probably the closest I can think of right there.
Kendrick was a WWE guy first. He went to TNA, teamed up with Paul London, came back less than a year later. So they weren't even really TNA guys. I,
I don't remember Kendrick being in WWE before he was in TNA, but I could
oh
be
yeah.
wrong about that. But London was definitely in TNA first.
Well, Kendrick was Spanky in oh no, Kendrick was he came up for a little while with the WWE as one of Shawn Michaels' proteges. Then he went to TNA and they were there, but they were only there for half a year before they came back. And it was after his tag team that he became the Spanky character, right? Or
No,
was it
He was Spanky on the Indies way before that.
okay? But I'm saying the WWE when he had his
Yes,
whole rap battle thing with Cena and all that stuff.
right.
So I mean,
Trying.
even well, you know what? Another guy that was a homegrown guy is Brock Lesnar. I guess I got to give him that too.
Yeah, but that was still right around the same time as Orton and Cena. So it doesn't
Right.
really,
But
and that doesn't really change the argument.
I still have to put that, out there that Lesnar's one of those guys too, because he is still, well, I guess he's not anymore, but he was up until the last couple of months still a WWE performer.
Yeah, I mean, and you have to give WWE credit for that class. I mean, they did a very piss poor job of creating stars on their own after that. But if you look at that class, that class was Randy Orton, Batista, John Cena, Brock Lesnar, Shelton Benjamin, and Charlie Haas. I mean,
And
that's incredible.
Kurt
That's
Angle though
incredible.
too, wasn't it? Wasn't
No,
Kurt? Oh, that's right. Kurt
no,
Angle
Angle was
came
like
in.
5 years before that.
Yeah, that's right. Because Angle came in the same time that Edge did,
Yeah.
or roughly right around the same time. Okay.
Uh, Angle came in '99.
Yeah, and Edge was
Yeah.
97 or 98.
Okay.
And Christian was 97 or 98 as well.
Yeah, so I mean but I mean those six guys all coming up at the same time in one class is just amazing.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. But yeah, I mean, if you look at their roster over the last few years or last 2 decades, like Punk, he was a Ring of Honor guy. You had
And and not to throw shade or anything. This is really serious. I'm not kidding about this, but they also had the Bastions come up at the same time too, which is still like eight stars coming up like that quickly is just awesome.
but weren't the Bashams big in ECW before that?
Not that I recall. Maybe not that I
The
recall.
twin you're talking about the twins, right?
Uh, Doug and Danny Basham.
Yeah, the twins. That weren't they the ECW twins that went on to be, or they started out as Jarrett's henchmen, then went to ECW, or they started in ECW, came back as Jarrett's henchmen, and then went on. Or am I thinking of somebody else? Duggan. Oh,
You're thinking Ron and Don Harris.
yeah, I was thinking of the Harris brothers. You're right. You're right. My bad. But the Bashams weren't really around that long.
No, but they were still, in
They
that
were
same
still homegrown
class,
talent. Yeah,
and
and they
they
were.
were still, stars and tag team champions.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
I'm just saying, I'm just trying to see like how much talent was in, OVW that came up to WWE in that time frame.
That '01, '02, '03 era. Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot did, and a lot was really good, and a lot. I think, what out of the names we mentioned, 8 of them are Hall of Famers or will be.
Speaking of WWE homegrown talent, did you see who was on the most recent NJPW Strong?
Yeah, it did. Wow, it was a perfect spot for him. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's just weird. I didn't actually watch the show, but it's weird to have Darren Young show up
Right.
in NJPW.
I'm glad that he
But
is.
but you know what? But you know what? Honestly, no weirder than it was when the first time I saw Juice Robinson there.
Well, Juice Robinson wasn't as weird because Juice Robinson was a hippie holding a sign in NXT. Darren Young was, for the most part, a big name that had a couple of pushes and came out as one of the founding members of one of the best factions over the last 20 years in Nexus. So it was a little bit more of a holy shit moment.
If you say so. I mean, I was never really a fan of either guy, I guess. So to me, it was kind of the same type of thing.
All I know is when I saw Darren Young, I was like, "Oh, great to see him working again. Wow." And then, but when I saw Juice, it was like, "Oh yeah, that's that hippie." It just for me it was different because I guess at the time maybe I wasn't a big NXT fan and he was more of a jobber on NXT than anything.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying I was excited to see Juice. I'm just saying I wasn't that excited to see Fred Rosser.
No, I get that. I get that. And I kind of really wasn't either. It was more of a, oh hey, that's wow, cool. He's on a new show. Glad to see that.
All right, fair
Kind
enough.
of like this, kind of like the first time I saw Davey Boy Smith on MLW and not NJPW or
I'm glad you brought up
WWE.
I'm glad you brought up Eddie Kingston earlier because I really do like that faction. Sorry, that family they're putting together.
I
It,
do
it's
and I
very
don't
it's
because
really interesting.
I do and I don't because what happened to Death Triangle? I get it, Pac is not there, but
That's what happened to him.
what's going to happen when he comes back? Because you know he's coming back.
Well, he did throw some shade on him last week, didn't he? He was
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
your buddy from Europe wasn't isn't able to show up here and stuff like that. So maybe it'll set up a fracture in the family, or maybe it'll set up um, you know, Ray Phoenix against Pac.
But Pac as a face is not going to work.
You're so hung up on this face heel thing.
No, it's not because of that. I mean, I want the tweeners. I don't care. Be you. It's the fact that the way that they book people is where the problem comes in because they still aren't on that same line of thinking that you and I are. It's let people be
They're not.
people. Not for the most part.
Well, I mean, can you honestly look at Hangman Page or Kenny Omega and tell me that one of those guys that their baby faces are heels?
No. But if you look at the way they're treating the Bucks, it's like they can't just let the Bucks be the Bucks. I mean, why else would the Bucks come out and kick a referee for no fucking apparent reason? Oh, I think I just dropped the first F-bomb of the night.
That's okay. We're 52 minutes in, so
Good point. But if they weren't sold, if they were sold on that type of storyline booking with the just tweeners versus tweeners and occasionally, badass heel and occasionally perfect baby face, but for the most part, tweener versus tweener, why go to the lengths they are with the Bucks? Why have them come out to start a Dynamite and kick a referee in the face for no reason? Absolutely
well,
no reason.
well, it may not be as much as you and I want it to, but I do think that they buy into tweeners more than what we normally see in pro
All right,
wrestling.
that's true.
You
You're
know,
right.
I don't feel like for instance, I mean, we got this thing with Taz and Jake Roberts making that agreement for that 6-man tag next week, but they also made it clear it's like a one-time thing, and then after that they're enemies again.
Well, and I guess we did get a quote unquote babyface versus babyface match with Kaz and Adam Page.
Yeah.
We've gotten that from time to time too with other, but I've also seen, like it's weird with the inner circle because three of those five guys could easily be considered faces, but they're
Which three?
heels. I think Santana, Ortiz, and Guevara.
Okay.
I mean, they do some dirty, underhanded tactics, but for the most part, they're lovable and cheerable. And even
I don't
Jericho.
I don't think Ortiz is lovable and Jericho.
All right, maybe Santana and Jericho, maybe more so than Ortiz. I guess Ortiz does kind of come off as a hard ass badass, but
I don't think Jericho's terrible either.
what's that?
I don't think Jericho's terrible either.
Jericho's got his catchphrases. He's funny. He does his things. So,
I guess, but he's also a complete fucking tool.
but Guevara and Ortiz, those two easily could come off as faces.
Yeah, those two I guess I can see that, but I would not say that Hagar or
No,
Ortiz or Jericho are terrible.
all right, you got me there. I guess Ortiz is definitely not because he is kind of the dickhead of the team, and Jericho over the last 6 to 8 months. I mean, Jericho does have his moments, but a lot of that's because he's Chris Jericho. Um,
Yeah,
Hagar is not likable at
he's
all.
Chris Jericho. That personality shines through in there. And there's times that you laugh at what he does, but at the same time, he's clearly just a complete asshole.
But he's also proven throughout his 30-year career that he can on a dime flip it to make people cheer for him. He was a heel when you started the whole list thing, and people started cheering for him. I could easily see him turn it on a dime, but that's just because he's the GOAT. It's not he doesn't have to go through heel face turns. He can just be himself and either be cheered or booed depending on what he's doing.
I really hope he doesn't. At least not until he's like on his like final few matches as an actual true retirement. I
His
really like him.
retirement tour,
I
yeah.
really love the heel character he's playing right now. I love to hate him. I don't really want him to go back to being a babyface.
Well, when you look at his stint in WWE with the whole Kevin Owens thing, he was a heel, but people started cheering him because of the whole list thing and just Jericho and his personality shining through, and then that eventually got under Kevin Owens' skin and they ended up turning, and then heel because Jericho was so likable and liked anyway, he became the face. It wasn't a face turn, it was just, well, the fans are cheering him, so let's make him the good guy here.
Yeah, that's
And
fair.
with Jericho, that's the way it's been throughout his entire career. He did that in the 90s when all of a sudden he was just being Jericho, but he started making fun of Stephanie McMahon, so he became a face. And then he was just being Jericho, and he started throwing his hand up and saying, had enough of you, Rock," and he became a heel. It's just the way that Jericho has been throughout. The only time I've ever seen a true heel or face turn from Jericho was in WCW in like 96, 97 when he got on that losing streak, went on his little tantrum where he was throwing chairs and smashing chairs and things, and then all of a sudden came out with his new attitude and the list of 1,004 moves and all that stuff. That's really the only time I've ever seen a Jericho true heel or face turn throughout his entire career. Other than that, it's just been fans start cheering him, so now all of a sudden he's a face.
Well, I think that him having the inner circle around him is kind of a defense against that. You know, he's got that heel stable in his back pocket in the palm of his hand, and I think that will constantly weigh him towards being heel.
Except for the fact that two of his members, one of them makes everybody laugh every time he's on screen, and the other one is just so good at a heel that you want to boo him, but ultimately he's so talented and such a just fun-loving guy that eventually people are going to cheer him.
Well, then maybe he can be out and somebody else can be in. But the point is he's got
He
he's
has a
got heel,
faction, yeah.
he's got a faction of heel anchors.
Yeah, you're true. That's right. That's true.
Um,
I'll give you that. You win
I
that
and I
round, sir.
and I and I really and I know you said you don't, but I really enjoy the dynamic of the revival with I'm sorry, the FTR with Tully Blanchard.
I do too. Um, I just hope the rumors aren't true and it's going to lead to a four horseman type thing where uh, Sean Spears and Cody Rhodes are going to end up in it.
The rumors aren't true or are true.
I hope they're not true.
You've heard those rumors?
I've heard those rumors.
Oh, okay.
I've heard that Tully's going to be the J.J. Dillon type character. That um, FTR is going to be the Minnesota Wrecking Crew, that Sean Spears is going to come in the Tully Blanchard role, and then Cody's going to come in the Ric Flair role. That's the rumors I've heard.
Please no.
Exactly. Leave it the way it is.
I mean, I'm okay with Cody being, the world title challenging leader
Except
of
he
the
can't.
stable, but it's a challenge for the title.
No, his contract, he can't.
I know. I'm just saying I'm okay with him in that role in general, but Sean Spears in that Tully Blanchard role is just sickening to me.
They would have to build him up a lot. I think, and I mean, you and I have had our Sean Spears discussions in the past. We've had our arguments. Sean Spears is a poking point for you. Like whenever I want to really piss you off, I tell you Sean Spears is actually kind of good, and all hell breaks loose. But ultimately, I think they could have gotten to that point with Spears. I just don't think that they did it right. And when he came out there with Tully Blanchard on his underwear, that ruined it right from that point. He's a comedy character and a jobber from that point. Plain and simple. As much as I like Spears, once he came out there with Tully Blanchard's face on his underwear, I was done. That was it. He's nothing more than a jobber and never will be.
Yeah, I'm just trying to like run through my head right now the AW roster and trying to put together who I think would fit that role um, into in a four horseman type stable.
I don't think it can be Cody because I think it needs to be somebody that can legitimately be a champion. And Cody clearly can't.
I meant the Tully Blanchard.
Oh, you meant the Tully Blanchard guy?
Yeah,
Maybe Sabian. Rusev would be another great, or Miro would be another great one in that spot. Rusev or Miro would probably be the best one in that spot. I think Kip Sabian could be groomed to that spot. He's not there yet, but I think he could definitely be groomed to that spot. Lance Archer could definitely pull off the Barry Windham spot, which is technically the best version of the Horseman they ever had. Where you move Tully into that Tully and Arn, and then you had Barry Windham and um, Flair. I think Cody, Archer, and FTR would work well in that version of it.
yeah. I think that MJF has got to be the top guy to be the top guy,
Yeah, if MJF is in there, he's got to be the heavyweight. He's got to be the Flair.
right? And that's what I'm saying is I think as I'd rather have him be in there than Cody be in there.
Oh, me too. But MJF shines so much on his own. But MJF, Wardlow, and FTR as a faction would be a lot of fun. And I could see those four working really well with Tully as the lead. The problem is Tully going to be the kind of guy that can take the back seat like J.J. Dillon? Because right now he is not. He's the mouthpiece. He's the front and center guy with FTR. Can he
Yeah,
be the
but
guy to
if you got
take the back?
MJF, but if you have MJF in that main role, then he could talk. He's a better talker than either Dax or Cash are.
And he's a better talker than Tully. He's a better talker. But could you imagine that stable? Because that might be the closest thing to the original Horseman we could come up with right now. I mean, I felt like when TNA did their version of it with, Beer Money, uh, Kaz, and AJ Styles, they were close to it, but they didn't have that mouthpiece. Like Flair was that mouthpiece. Yeah,
Yeah, I really feel like there's somebody that's not in AEW that would fit that stable like perfectly. Like I think that if that like looking at it, like if I were to like pick the perfect four horseman type stable right now, it wouldn't be
what do you want?
MJF. Um, and hear me out because he's so young. I'd have MJF in that TNT title role right now,
Okay.
but totally as the Blanchard role. I'd have FTR as the tag team champions, and I'd have Seth Rollins as the top guy
You would have Seth Rollins, or you'd have MJF in the Tully role. Is that what you were
for
saying?
for for a couple of years. Yeah,
I
until
mean,
like he eventually ousts Rollins out of there.
and yeah, and that would make sense. I would be okay with that.
But I'm just like looking like in the world of wrestling, I'm like, who would fit that stable? And to me, it's Seth Rollins. So but you don't have him.
I'm
That's
trying
the
to
problem. You don't have him.
I'm trying to think if there's anybody else that would really fit that role. I mean,
Well, Hangman could fit the Tully role, but the thing is that he's not really a heel, you
and he
know.
can't really
And,
fit that
and I don't and
that
I don't, and I don't see him being under anybody
he
either.
can't really fit that um Flair role. It's like if you're the Tully role is an easy one to fit because there's so many guys out there. Or I'm sorry, the yeah, I guess Tully.
But I guess when I think of Tully, I think like of a like a work rate guy who goes out there and he's wrestling these 20-minute classics and the guys you mentioned like Miro probably could do it, but I don't think
Archer
I
could.
don't think Wardlow can. I don't think Murder Rock Monster can.
And
You know
see,
I
that's where I'm looking at it going more of a that there's two versions of the Horsemen that we could go with. We can go with the original with the Minnesota Wrecking Crew, Tully and Flair,
yeah
or we can go with the second version, which, like I said, was the more popular, lasted the longest, which is Flair, Barry Windham, Tully and Arn. And Tully and Arn at that point were the tag team. That was the tag team, and then you had Windham in as that mid card guy. You had Flair in as the champion. So you can look at it two different ways. If you want to go with the original one, then you have to have a guy like Rollins leading it and MJF as the middle as the mid card guy.
yeah
If you
and I suppose when I say Rollins, it could also be Omega.
it could be
Omega's kind of leading heel right now anyway.
it
So
could be Omega. It could honestly be a guy like Moxley if he ever were to go down that route and lead a stable. Um, those are guys that could fit that Flair role, and then you could have an MJF as the mid Carter. But if you went with the second variation, you've got the tag team already. Then all you need is that strong silent guy, where a guy like Archer or Miro or someone along or Wardlow would fit perfectly in the Barry Windham role, and then you've got MJF as the perfect Flair at that point.
yeah, that all makes sense.
So I mean, it depends on which version of the Horseman you're looking at. Like, I'm not talking about Mike Rotunda because that version sucked.
Mike Rotunda was in the Horseman.
Hmm. Because Tully failed his physical coming back, so he
Okay.
couldn't when the Brainbusters came back. And hey, you guys dropped stuff when Tully and Arn came back from WWE and they were reforming the Horsemen. Um, they Yeah, okay, throw it away. When they first came back, Tully got didn't pass his physical, and because he didn't pass his physical, they put Mike Rotunda in the Tully spot.
I do not remember that.
It's terrible, and you don't ever want to remember that. And I hope that all that has been erased from the network, and we never have to relive it. But it did happen.
Yeah, now that you mentioned that, of course, we have to, what we have not answered is the biggest question about creating a new Horseman is who would fill the Paul Roman role.
The Paul Roman role, um, Sean Spears, Ben. That would be the Sean Spears role. There would be the Paul Roma role. Easily the worst iteration of the Horseman ever.
There's only three of them.
What's that? Oh
There's only
no.
three of the four Horsemen.
Well, and then we had the Benoit era, the Benoit and Pillman era,
Yeah.
and then we also had the Benoit and Steve Mongo McMichael era, which also briefly included Jeff Jarrett. And then of course there was the Dean Malenko era.
Hmm.
So I mean, we got a lot of iterations of the Horseman, but if you're going to look at the Horseman, you think of those first two variations, especially that first and second one. I mean, that first one with Blanchard as the mid card, and that second one with Wyndham as the mid card.
Right.
Those are the two variations of the Horseman that matter.
Yeah. I agree.
But it's tough to say Benoit didn't matter.
Yeah, but by that time the Horsemen were second fiddle stable to the NWO anyway.
Well,
So,
leading up to that, they were still, even before the NWO came in, they were still. I mean, when Pillman and Benoit were both members, and they were both, considered the Young Horsemen. Which, if you remember in
oh, that's right.
WCW,
That was right before the NWO, wasn't it?
yeah,
Okay,
well, that was
yeah,
because Pillman went, that was you remember when Arn Anderson slapped Pillman in the middle of the ring, telling him he needed to calm down and all that stuff. And do you remember the logo that was on Benoit's shorts or his tights? Um, in like 95, 96, 97, that really weird looking 4H.
yeah.
That was the new Four Horsemen symbol for the Young Horsemen,
Okay.
and still one of my favorite symbols ever. But that was because of him and Pillman.
Yeah, but if we're gonna have those two in there, then when the revival doesn't fit, or the FTR doesn't
No,
fit,
no,
so
no, not at
we have
all.
to totally start from scratch then.
Yeah, if we're having if we're having those two, we need to go more towards like a like a Page and Omega as the tag team guys.
Yeah.
And
So
both those two are heavyweights. They're not mid carders. They're not definitely not tag team.
no, it would actually have to be more like best friends.
You think so?
I do. I would compare the best friends more than I would Omega and Page.
What about SCU? I think they would fit it more because um
Which version of SCU?
uh the new one, not the Addiction. Yeah, I'm
Okay,
talking SCU with Frankie and I mean the Addiction like 5, 6 years ago. That would be the perfect Pillman Benoit
that's very true.
because you had that hard worker in Kaz like Benoit, and then you had that kind of fun-loving, crazy guy like Pillman in Daniels. That would have been the perfect tag team.
You know, don't you think like now that you mentioned those guys, now looking back, like the perfect Horseman tag team of all time probably would have been Motor City Machine Guns.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Those guys, they're a great blend. They remind me a lot of the old Minnesota Wrecking Crew, but also a cross between Benoit and Pillman.
Yeah, I would say a cross between those two teams and the Midnight Express.
Did you hear the rumor that FTR wants and I mean, they did this before with the North, so it's kind of no surprise, but they were taught that someone brought up a dream match, and they were talking, absolutely, we'll do that. We want that. We want to face these guys with MCG against FTR.
Oh, that's great.
Could you imagine that match? I want to see that more than anything.
I
Especially
also I also want
ex-
to see FTR against the Briscoes.
especially now that FTR is back to the way they were in NXT. They're back to that kind of storytelling, the great mix of the thing I liked the most about Dash and Dawson before they became the Revival was they were that odd couple that was thrown together. They had nothing for either one of them to do, so they're like kind of like Neidhart and Bret Hart in the 80s. They're like, we got nothing for you guys. You go be a tag team. And they took it by storm because their personalities, their styles, everything about them clashed so much, but not too much, that they melded perfectly. I was when I was thinking about who FTR reminded me the most about, it was always the Hart Foundation, the original uh, Jimmy and Bret,
Oh, really? Okay.
Jim Neidhart and Bret Hart. Because if you think about it, when was the last time you had two styles, two personalities, two everything that clashed like FTR does, but melded so well, and they were able to put on such great stories and tell what they wanted to tell in the ring, but make themselves into those babyface characters, but still be the heels. I can't remember another tag team that was ever like that. Strike Force, maybe, maybe.
Yeah, see, that's weird because I mean they have always reminded me of Anderson and Blanchard, and they see themselves as more like the Midnight Express, which
And
is
and see, I
which is
see it more
odd.
as the Heart
So
Foundation because Midnight Express to me were always those baby faces, always.
see,
Even
and
when
the I mean the Hearts. I mean I always kind of like think of like the Hart Foundation as like a team where you got a big guy and a small guy, and I don't see that with FTR at all.
That is true, but when you looked at them size-wise, the only thing that made Neidhart the big guy was because he was that power guy.
But he
But
was also 50 pounds, more in body weight than Brett was.
fair enough, fair enough. But when you look at FTR and the modern tag teams, you really don't have that power guy anymore. But what I'm talking about is more that clash of styles. Like when Dash and Dawson first got together, they were both kind of ground and pound guys, but they had different ways of going about it. Where it to me it reminded me of that whole okay, and I never really bought into Bret Hart as a high flyer. So, there was that too.
Hmm.
Bret Hart was a technical guy. Uh, Neidhart was the heavyweight ground and pounder guy, and I kind of always felt that same way about Dash and Dawson, where Dawson seemed more of the technical guy, where Dash was more of it wasn't like the Midnight Express where you had the two. You're right, it was more like the Brainbusters, Tully and Arn, where you had two technical guys but Arn was really that hard hitter where Tully was that technical guy. And I kind of felt the same way about Dash and Dawson. And about the Hearts. Neidhart was the power guy. Um, Brett was the technical guy. Dawson was the technical guy. Dash was the power guy. So you're right. Yeah, those three tag teams probably link really well together when you think about it.
And the other thing that I thought was they were the Brainbusters, or and they were only called that for a year really, but Blanchard and Anderson, as a
But
team were like really crafty, and they would sneak out victories, and I see that with the Revival all the time too. They don't rely like on Jimmy Hart, or they don't rely on like cheating. They just like outcraft their opponents and beat them.
and that was the one big difference between. I mean, the when you look at Arn and Tully, you've got to take out that, like you said, year that they were the Brainbusters. Because during that year they were the Brainbusters, they relied on Bobby Heenan all the time.
Hmm.
So if you didn't know them before that,
Because that's what WWE booked Bobby Heenan.
right. But if you didn't know that before that, you didn't realize that the Brainbusters were that kind of FTR. And now when you've got Tully with FTR, are we going to get the kind of Brainbusters thing? Or are we going to get the FTR of old and with the NXT where they're just kind of sneaky and figure shit out?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have no idea. I did
So I
I
just,
we did see on and we've seen both ways, because they straight up beat beat Omega and Page,
right,
but then against Private Party they had the help of Tully.
right, which makes no sense. That kind of booking
Well,
never
it
makes
it does
sense.
it does the way they're pushing Private Party though, because the way they've been pushing Private Party is that Private Party gets up for these big matches, and they occasionally pull these huge upsets where they're kind of playing above their level.
Okay, you
Uh,
know what? I'm going to call myself an asshole right now
okay.
because the one thing I have been saying, and you and I both agreed, is this whole one-upsmanship thing needs to go. Where the whole reason why there's multiple finisher kickouts now is because The Rock and Steve Austin both kicked out of their own out of their finishers. And then Kurt Angle comes in and says, "Well, I can't be worse than The Rock, so I've got to kick out of two." And then Triple H comes in, and that's why we have this shit now. And I literally was just going down that route saying, "Well, you can't have Private Party lose to cheating because, the better tag team lost clean." I was literally just going to say that. So you know what? I'm an asshole. Plain and simple.
Yeah. Um,
You just unplugged yourself, dude. At least I think that was you. All I know is you're not saying
yeah,
anything. There.
Khaleesi unplugged my cord.
All right.
So,
I'm
yeah,
just glad people can hear us this week. Now that I figured out my microphone stuff. Sorry, guys. Last couple of weeks you
theoretically.
couldn't hear us. Please go to our Patreon and check out the last couple of weeks. It was Quarantine is rough. Let's just put it that way.
Yes, indeed. Anything, we didn't really touch on Miro very much, so there hasn't been much to touch on with him because he hasn't really done much. So I
No,
do
he
like they're
hasn't.
calling him not just Kiss best man, but the best man. That's
Yeah,
a
I
that's really
like that
cool.
too. I really
And
do like that.
and those eyes and those the looks that Penelope was kind of giving, like rolling her eyes about Miro, or like getting upset about Miro throwing the bachelor party, was interesting too. So we'll have to see how that plays out.
I'm uh I'm really interested to see what this does for Kip. Yeah, give it here. I'm really interested to see how this works out for Kip because I think, when we talk about wrestlers out there, there's certain guys that we think have it, but they're just not getting their due, or maybe they don't have the right influence, or, where I think they might be this big time superstar at some point. They're just not there yet. We've said it about Janela, but Janela has kind of proven over the last, I don't know, year that he's not that guy. Sammy has proven it, but would Sammy be at the level he is without Jericho? I think Kip Sabian is in that same boat. I think what Miro can do for Sabian to make him that legitimate superstar is going to be amazing for his career.
But at the same time, I want Miro to be in that level too because he deserves
Oh
that
yeah, he
after the way
does.
he was treated. I really want there to be a really, really great Miro day.
I do too, and I think that the best version of Rusev that we got was during that Rusev Day stuff.
Yeah, it
Um,
was.
yeah, and I think Sabian is a guy that can fill that Aiden English role perfectly,
Agreed. I was
which
about to
will
say that.
which will help both of them because Rusev and Aiden English together helped Rusev become probably the best version of himself since he left NXT. It helped Aiden English establish himself as a good hand, not a good wrestler, because he kind of came off as a comedy character. But I think if AEW does it the way AEW has done, I think they have the ability to establish him as a good wrestler slash comedy character, much like they've done with Sammy Guevara.
Yeah, and as much as I hate the fact that AEW um let Jimmy Havoc go, I do think it may end up being the best that could have happened to get Kip Sabian.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. And I mean,
It's already given him a chance to shine in a way he was not shining with Jimmy Havoc as his partner.
to be honest, I really like the way. I mean, before I remember when we talked about it when they first signed Jimmy Havoc, and I was so upset. I'm like, how could you do this? He's nothing more than a hardcore wrestler, and I felt like they did a really good job with him. I felt like they showed us that he is not just a hardcore wrestler.
Right, and that's what Imp tried to tell us too.
Right, exactly. Oh, you did. Yeah, you did. Um, and because I remember it was after what that the second show that they did when we were all high on Darby Allin, and I remember saying on that show that Darby Allin is everything Jimmy Havoc wishes he was.
Right, I said the same thing too.
And then we were able to see over the last couple of years that hey, Jimmy Havoc's actually a pretty good wrestler.
Um, we only got I think probably about 8 minutes left because we're pushing 9 o'clock now. But
Holy shit.
I did want to say, you didn't get a chance to watch the whole thing, but I really want to I just want to say that I really like the way that they're um, producing the pure title tournament. I the two matches I've seen so far, they
We're looking
haven't
her up.
gotten neither guy has gotten three rope breaks, so they're setting that up for the future. But also, I just love the fact that they're doing these like 5 minute interview or promos before each match, where for each guy, where they're having each guy like discuss like why they want to be champion and what they've done in their career and all that kind of stuff, which is great. Not only for guys that we've seen before,
Dave.
because it gives us a chance to be reintroduced after 6 months of not seeing them on our screens, but also these guys coming in like our boy Wheeler Yuta that we really liked from MLW coming
What
in
is he
and
called now?
talking.
He's no longer Jimmy.
He's no, he's Wheeler Utah.
Wheeler. What was he? There was another promotion he was in where he was another name.
I know he was Wheeler in that one too. I think.
Oh, was he? Okay.
And then and his nickname is the Decoder.
Ah, okay. I
So,
don't know.
but yeah, Wheeler Utah's there, and then our other boy from our other boy we didn't get to see enough of in MLW, Fred Yehi, is also in this tournament.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah,
Well, didn't was it Fred that joined um NXT for, or was that ACH?
that was ACH. ACH was NXT. Remember, Fred Yehi joined Team Filthy, and then we never saw him again.
That's right. He got beat up in the backstage and we never saw him again.
um,
He got beat up um by the professional, low key,
right.
and then we never saw
Uh,
him again. You're right.
and then speaking of MLW, I wanted to bring this up as well. I'm not sure if you've been paying attention to MLW at all lately, but
Here and
they've
there.
actually started putting on old shows on their YouTube channel. I think it's called MLW Unleashed. I could be wrong about that,
Yep.
but it's got Joey Styles as the commentator, and it's like from the original days of MLW.
So we're gonna get the Extreme Horseman.
I think so. So I thought it'd be fun if we had found time to watch some of those shows.
Did you just say find time?
I did. I mean, I know she one season as well, but I mean, I think like going back, it's new to us, right?
Right, right. Well, it's just
Back when the old stuff was new, Jeff.
maybe when January gets here and we've actually got time to breathe from our jobs, that might be a good idea.
All right, but
We'll add that to our list of stuff that we want to cover.
yeah, the first episode, I can't remember who gets, but I know La Parka was in the first match. So
Oh, really?
yeah,
Is he cooking eggs and sausage or what do you call them? Chorizo or whatever it was? What that is simply the worst segment I've ever seen on wrestling was when him and his son were cooking.
no, I think this was actually taking place in the ECW arena. So I mean, I think
Oh,
this is
okay, okay.
like back when they were just trying to carry on that ECW tradition as best they could.
So he's not cooking.
He might be cooking in the ring, but he's not actually cooking. No,
What the hell was he cooking? It was like eggs and like
eggs and sausage.
the salt shaker fell off and it was just a disaster. Easily the worst segment I've ever seen in wrestling. And I saw a lot of brother love segments, so that's saying something.
And folks, remember that no matter what Jeff says on this show and how weird we both act, Jeff loves you.
I loved him until that last man standing match. And what the hell are they going to do with Otis? You know, they made a joke out of him winning it. Now, are they actually going to let him cash it in, or is he just going to hold it until it dies?
Well, he has a year to cash it in.
It's been almost a year, hasn't it?
No, it was like wasn't it like April or May?
Oh, dear God, we got to wait more? Oh, that's right, because it was during quarantine, and that was their answer to something that AEW did.
Oh, you know what? Speaking of Otis, I saw him say something about something, and I totally I know we haven't covered it. I don't even think we've had a show since it happened. But fuck WWE and fuck Vince McMahon for firing Jerry Briscoe. Are you out of your fucking mind, you asshole?
How do you fire Jerry Briscoe at this
Right?
point? That's like firing Pat Patterson. You
If I
don't
wasn't
do it.
already out on WWE, I would have been completely out when that happened. I mean, can you fucking believe? Can you fucking believe they did that?
There
He
are
should have had a
certain,
job for life after what he did for that company.
well, yeah, him and Pat Patterson after being McMahon's stooges, just that alone should have bought them a lifetime career with that company.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I mean, those two showing up in dresses and Pat Patterson in his underwear. Oh my God.
Yeah, and they're making they're have the most revenue coming in they've ever had, and they're going to get rid of one of the guys that helped McMahon form that company. It's ridiculous
How are they having the most revenue they've ever had when nothing is happening? People can't go to shows.
because they have the biggest television deal they've ever had,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
and they have the WWE network. People are still paying $10 a month for.
Yeah,
And
and
and remember, when people go to shows, they have to rent out those arenas too.
Well, but they don't rent out the arenas because they're all doing them at the one at their Thunderdome or whatever they're calling it.
That's what I'm saying. They don't have to rent it out right now.
Oh, that's right. Okay, I misunderstood that.
Okay.
But uh,
So if you think about it, Jeff, I mean, if you have 20,000 people, if you had to pay $20,000 to rent an arena, and then you get $40,000 in revenue, you made $20,000. But if I'm just like giving like fake numbers,
right, right.
but if you own the arena and you are selling 50 tickets for $100 a piece, you just made $5,000 for basically doing nothing,
And
and
then
you didn't
merchandise
have to pay to rent that arena.
sales, merchandise, concessions, which I don't know if they're doing, but regardless, merchandise, concessions,
Yeah,
people are still
and
buying
remember
merchandise.
they remember they have that huge TV deal they came with that just started with Fox this year.
That's right.
So
Yeah, you're right. You're
yeah,
right. Yeah,
so
so
yeah, they have the most revenue they've ever had, regardless of the fact that they're not able to really run arena shows.
and that's mainly because expenses are so low.
Expenses are low. They've got the network, and they have that huge TV deal.
And people,
Plus that money they made for the Saudi Arabia shows.
I mean, let's be. Oh yeah, yeah, that too. I mean, but let's be honest. I mean, there's a lot of people, and I'm not gonna say everybody because I know a lot of people got laid off, and a lot of people technically are struggling. But a lot of people across the country are benefiting from working at home, which has, like myself, I've saved so much money this year that I was able to put a new roof on my house.
Right.
Now, if I had been able to not put a roof on my house, I may have bought, some of that money in wrestling shirts. That's more revenue.
I'm not going to say that you're wrong about people struggling this year, but when I look at the fact that the Xbox Series X, the Xbox Series S, and the two PS5
Have
models have
blown the
both
fuck
already
up,
sold out on pre-orders,
right?
I gotta wonder how many people are actually struggling out there.
I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are. I mean, I know a lot of restaurant workers, a lot of people that are cooks, and a lot of people that are waitresses, and bartenders and things like that that got laid off, and they are struggling. But ultimately, like I also have the same amount of friends who were restaurant cooks, who were waitresses, who were because of the government throwing in an extra $600, were actually making more by sitting at home than they were working.
Well, I know my brother because he was one of those cooks that got laid off as well, and I know that because with the unemployment he was getting, he was actually having being home more take home money home every 2 weeks than I was, which
Yeah,
is ridiculous. Which is
and and
ridiculous.
I have a couple friends that, were saying the same thing. I mean, they had literally said, "I hope we never go back to work because I'm making twice, or I'm making about $400 a month more than I was when I was working."
Right.
And then like me personally, working at home has saved me an hour and a half of drive time every day, which is an hour and a half of gas every day. It saved me daycare. It saved me, oh, hey, I'm hungry, so I'm just going to stop and pick up some fast food on the way home.
Hmm.
There's been a lot of stuff that it's saved me. So I'm not going to, I think, that kind of money has lent itself to people being able to spend a little bit more than they maybe would have last year when they were working. Plus, and like I said, there are some people that are struggling. I'm not going to lie. There are a lot of people that weren't able to make more because, maybe uh, they didn't qualify, but they got laid off because businesses were slow. There is that stuff too. So I hate to say it, personally, some friends I know have made more, but I also know a few other people that have been struggling and I've been helping out on the side because of.
Right. I've also had like a lot of money and gas and stuff and time not having to go to work, but I'm also looking forward to not having to drive in the wintertime. So,
Oh my God, yes.
so
Especially me. I live 35 minutes from work.
well, I don't live much. I live about 30 minutes myself
Yeah,
from
yeah,
work. So,
right. So that
yeah,
that drive in the winter, oh my God, I can't wait.
yeah.
I can't wait
So
to not have to get up at 5 in the morning to shovel my driveway so I can get out to go to work.
or to walk out in the 30 degrees below zero when freezing cold.
Right, that too.
Yeah. So so there's perks to it. I mean, I've mostly evaded the last year, but I mean there's perks to it.
Right.
So
So anyway, guys, I know we're up against it here. And we did have some mishaps, and if you didn't get a chance to listen to the last couple of shows, head over to our Patreon. It's patreon.com/Kingdom of Honor. They're up for free. Go ahead and listen to them. If you like what you hear, please do us a favor, hit the subscribe button, donate for a tier. It's a small donation, helps us out in the long run. Also, if you're listening to us on YouTube, do me a favor, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and check out our Twitters. I am at Regi Co-op. He is at Zanman LOP. We use the hashtag KOH when we do anything, and that will help you find us better.
and remember, stay tuned to other shows here on LOP Radio, including MCLOP Radio Adventure and WWF Legacy Series, and whatever else is coming down the pike in the next few days. And that's all we've got. We try to do better next time, and we love you.
Oh, I hate you. Hate you. Goodbye, guys.